Susanna Eden, and can you hear me? We were told maybe to use the mic, so use the mic. Okay. Okay. You are our first audience, so we will be looking for your reactions and your questions to help us make this better. Are we all about ready? And, all right, so we'll get started. The Water Resources Research Center, this is our building, and as you can see, we have rainwater harvesting. I've already gone over our mission, so we'll just skip right through this, but let me tell you a little bit about what we brought with us. We brought our Arizona water map, which is a very useful reference for anyone who's interested in water in Arizona. And we will be using our map in our presentation today and pointing out some of the features of it. So our first interaction, how much do you think you know about water? We were told that these were the areas where the people in the Green Valley-Sahuarita area were interested in learning about water quality, water supply, whether it's overused, how it's overused, whether it's overused, any pollution, and factors that influence the environment. So that's a word cloud that came out of answers to our question on the survey, and you can see water supply and quality are big issues. So, first a background on Arizona's water. This is going to be a context, background picture of water in Arizona. To begin with, there are several sources of water that are used in Arizona. About 40% comes from groundwater, about 40% comes from the Colorado River, and the remaining comes from other surface water, such as the Salt River and the Verde River, and there's a little sliver that comes from reclaimed water. And this map shows where groundwater is predominant, where Colorado River water is predominant, and where there's a mix of those. So we are right here, and if it's clear enough for you to see, you can see that we use a lot of groundwater in there, and we also use a lot of Colorado River water. Right? In terms of who uses the water in the state of Arizona, most of it, about 70%, is used for agriculture, and the rest is, the largest chunk is for our municipal communities, families and stores, and then some smaller percentage for industrial, which includes mining and golf courses, by the way. So, and this has what I've already gone over about the supply. But you will notice that half of the Colorado River supply goes to the CAP, which comes to us, or comes almost to you, comes to Tucson, and the other half stays on the river. But look at the amount of groundwater that is used in comparison to renewable surface water. And this can be an issue in many areas of the state. So I've just said the word CAP, but CAP, in case anyone doesn't know, is a large canal that brings Colorado River water all the way from Lake Havasu down to the south end of Tucson. It's 336 miles long, and it carries about 1.6 million acre feet of water. Now, an acre foot of water is the amount of water, let's say about the size of a football field, 1 foot deep. So it's a lot of water. Most of Arizona's population is served by the CAP because they live in the central portion of the state, in the Phoenix area and in the Tucson area. And who gets CAP water? Well, in this area, there are entitlements to CAP water that go to the community that belong to these entities. Now, they're not receiving it because the CAP canal doesn't come down here, but they're using it in various ways. And Farmers Investment Company is going to be seeing CAP water in the future, and we'll talk about that later on in the presentation. So, what is the water situation in Arizona? Well, let's start by talking about the Colorado River. The Colorado River is over-allocated, which means that there are more people using water from the Colorado than there is in the natural flow of the river. Climate change is supposed to reduce the amount of water in the river. It affects the main source of river water, which is snowpack, and it is projected to reduce flows in the river by, well, there's a range of possibilities, but by something like 10 to 20% over the next century. And the state of Arizona has been working on something called the Drought Contingency Plan in order to solve the problems of future shortage that come from the fact that the river flows are not substantial enough to meet our current demands, let alone our future demands. This is an illustration of the problem that we're having with the Colorado River in the largest storage reservoir on the river and actually in the country, which is Lake Mead. The blue line you see is the level of Lake Mead.
Yes, I think so.
Whether or not the state of Arizona sees a shortage in its allocation of water from the river will depend on how low the level of Lake Mead goes.
Push a button right there.
Okay.
Give you your laser. This is the level where where since 2007 we were worrying about falling below this level, because if we did, then there would be a shortage declaration and our allocation of CAP water would be cut. And the higher line is what the drought contingency plan defined as the level below which we will all voluntarily take shortages in order to buffer the lake and keep it from falling too low. And here is what is being called a Tier 1 shortage, which is the new level at which we're going to take some cut in our Colorado River allocation, as opposed to the older level where we would take a larger cut. So And in the end, all the states that are party to this agreement will be taking larger cuts in order to keep the level of Lake Mead high enough that everyone will be able to get water out of the lake. The thing to avoid is for the lake to become so low that energy can't be generated and water does not flow out of Lake Mead. So everyone is working very hard to see that that doesn't happen. So we have several slides about how this is going to affect people, and you can see how in this diagram how the CAP organization allocates water, and so what they call priority, or who gets the water first, goes up from the bottom. So priority 3 is the highest level. Then above that is slightly lower priority, and then et cetera to the top where they have something called excess water. And in this area, most of the allocations of CAP water are in the fairly high priority range. The additional water comes from areas that are more likely to be cut in the event of a shortage on the river.
What is the M&I priority and the NI?
Okay, I think we go through, no we don't. Okay, so M&I priority stands for municipal and industrial. And that is everything you saw on that pie chart that fell into the municipal industrial. Indian priority is a priority of water that was allocated to Indian tribes based on their settlements. NIA stands for non-Indian agricultural priority, and it's a misnomer because at this point it's largely used by municipalities and some industry. And then the ag pool is agricultural water for the most part, and the other excess generally goes to recharge. So the water that the Arizona Water Banking Authority puts in to save water and other entities put into recharge projects has been coming out of excess water. How is water managed in Arizona? Well, it's managed in 2 separate ways for water supply. One is in the active management areas, which were created by the Arizona's Groundwater Management Act, which was passed in 1980. And they take in the large population centers in the state. Most of them are in the what we call the AMAs, and Tucson certainly is in one of them. You can probably see, but here's the Tucson AMA, and Tucson itself is sort of in there. And for Tucson and Phoenix, the goal of management is safe yield, and safe yield is that we're not going to take more out of the ground, more groundwater out of the ground that gets put back in either naturally or by artificial recharge. And we here in Green Valley and Sahuarita are just a little bit further down here above the Santa Cruz AMA down in that area. Outside of the AMAs, the same kind of management does not exist, and that sometimes has created problems for communities that are not whose groundwater is not managed for safe yield or for a active management goal. So, okay, we've reached the end of the background.
The last graph you showed of the areas, including the Tucson, our area, do
Yeah.
other parts of Arizona get cap water, or does it just go through their area and only these get
Yeah.
cap water?
So, the CAP canal, oops, comes like this and goes down here. So it really was the lifeline for the active management areas. The areas that have been successful in getting close to or achieving safe yield over the last few years have done so because of the existence of the CAP.